Hi, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. I share Scareful stories to make you think, make you wonder, and maybe, just maybe, make you a little more careful. If you like what you see, please give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and consider subscribing to the channel. It's almost turning to spring, and that got me to thinking about Easter and spring break, and Easter always reminds me of the sad case of Sandra Eckert. This was a case I covered a few years ago, and it really hits close to home for me because it happens right here near Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Sandra is actually missing from Franklin, Wisconsin, which is like a little suburb of Milwaukee. At the time that I first covered Sandra's case, she had been missing for about a year, and her family was desperately searching for answers. Today, nearly 4 years later, I'm bringing you an update on this heartbreaking case. And I have to warn you that while there have been significant developments over the years, Sandra still hasn't been found and no one has been charged. Let's dive into what happened since the first video. For those of you who didn't see the original video, go watch it right now if you want. I'll link it down below, but I'll also just give a little recap here. Sandra Eckert was 70 years old when she vanished on March 26 of 2021. Her husband, Wesley Eckert Sr., claims that they got into an argument that night over his recently deceased mother's will. According to Wes, Sandra wanted him to contest the will because his sisters were getting more than he was, but he felt they deserved it since they'd taken care of their mother. Wes claims that Sandra threatened to leave and threatened divorce, even coming downstairs wearing a coat and saying, "You'll hear from my lawyer." He claims that he took her car keys to prevent her from leaving, convinced her to go to bed, and when he woke up the next morning, she was gone. And so was his gray 2005 Dodge Stratus, a car that Sandra didn't normally drive. At 3 a.m. that Saturday morning, Muskego police spotted the Dodge Stratus traveling south on Racine Avenue, then west on Tans Drive, and south on Crowbar Drive. The police ran the plates, confirmed that it was Wes's car, but didn't have any reason to pull it over. Sandra hadn't been reported missing yet, and the car was being driven normally. To this day, that remains the last confirmed sighting of the vehicle. Neither Sandra nor the car have ever been found. In the years since my first video, some truly disturbing details have come to light. In July of 2022, search warrants in the case were unsealed, and what they reveal is just chilling. First, investigators learned that on the night Sandra disappeared, a neighbor reported hearing what they thought were gunshots coming from the direction of the Eckert home. This detail, combined with other evidence, led Franklin police to officially classify Sandra's disappearance as a homicide investigation in June of 2022. But here's where things get even a little more disturbing. The unsealed documents revealed that Sandra and Wes's children had been telling investigators some truly alarming things. One daughter told detectives that she had once witnessed Wes threatening Sandra, telling her that he would kill Sandra and stuff her body in a water heater. In the immediate days following Sandra's disappearance, Wes scrapped at least 2 water heaters. Investigators actually followed up with the local scrapyard and asked management what would happen if a human body was somehow put through their shredding machine. Management said that the shredder would obliterate a human body and that there would not be anything left of it. We all probably have like our own family dynamics, and sometimes you think, oh my gosh, my family's nuts. But I'll tell you this, my family isn't this bad. I've never seen my dad threaten to kill my mom. You just really start to wonder, like, what goes on in some families? And I know that people stay together for a lot of reasons, oftentimes for financial reasons. Maybe Wes and Sandra, needed each other for financial help and they couldn't make it on their own. But you really wonder what's going on in a marriage like that, where you're that awful to one another and to the point where you possibly killed your own spouse. Divorce is a little easier than murder. So take that route. If you've got some stuff going on, got a bad relationship, you don't need to kill anybody. You just need to leave them. In June of 2022, Franklin police announced that they had identified 2 persons of interest in Sandra's case. While the police haven't officially named them publicly, Wes himself confirmed that both he and his brother had been named persons of interest. Police executed a search warrant at Wes's brother's home in Waukesha in June of 2022, with the warrant specifically connected to a potential first-degree intentional homicide charge and hiding a corpse. Wes's brother was arrested at home, but was later released and no charges have ever been filed. According to search warrants, there's another troubling piece of this puzzle, which involves Wes's son from a previous relationship to that of Sandra, and his son's name is John. Sandra's children told investigators that Sandra had a contentious relationship with their stepbrother. The documents claim that John sent text messages to a sibling threatening Sandra's life, saying that he and his father knew bad people who could make Sandra disappear. Another text reportedly said, "Dad's friends are seriously talking about having your mother killed." And then another detail that's emerged out of the unsealed search warrants is that Sandra's cell phone records show that around 3:13 a.m. on the morning she disappeared, her phone stopped moving and had its last communication with the cell tower. And where was that tower located? Well, according to her son Wes Jr., it was at his uncle's house, Wes's brother's house. Sandra's cell phone, her new iPad, and the Dodge Stratus have never been recovered. When police stopped Wes a few days after Sandra's disappearance, he was driving Sandra's red SUV and had a bag containing $10,000 in cash and a gun. An anonymous tip had suggested Wes was picking up this bag from his son John. When police searched the couple's home in April of 2021, K9 dogs alerted to several locations inside the house and the garage, but investigators didn't find a crime scene or evidence of a struggle. Sandra's purse was left behind, but its contents had been emptied. Sandra's children, particularly her daughter Kelsey and son Wes Jr., have been fighting tirelessly to keep their mother's case in the public eye. Kelsey has been particularly vocal about her belief that her mother didn't leave voluntarily. "No 70-year-old is just off wandering, driving around in the middle of the night," Kelsey has said repeatedly. "There is no way a mom just up and leaves her children, her family, her everything." Kelsey was actually the one who reported her mother missing after Sandra didn't show up to Easter brunch in 2021. She said that she drove straight to the Franklin Police Department and refused to leave until they filed a missing person report, insisting it was completely out of character for her mother. "I stood there and said, I am not leaving until this is filed. It is out of character for any 70-year-old woman to do this, especially my mom. My mom would never walk away from the kids. She would never walk away from the grandkids," Kelsey told reporters. The family has maintained a $50,000 reward for information leading to a conviction in this case, and they've created a website, helpfindsandy.com, to keep attention on Sandra's disappearance. Thankfully, the case has received significant national attention over the past few years. In 2022, the Vanished podcast did an extensive episode on Sandra's case, and then in March of 2024, Sandra's story was featured in Season 5 of the Paramount Plus documentary series Never Seen Again. The episode, entitled Where's Mom?, examined the circumstances of Sandra's disappearance and the questions surrounding her husband's account of that night. The family hoped that this exposure would lead to new tips or information, but as of now, the case remains unsolved. In October of 2024, the case made headlines again, but for a heartbreaking reason. Wesley Eckert Sr. was cited for driving the wrong way on I-94. The vehicle he was driving was Sandra's red SUV. Kelsey confirmed that her father was driving her mother's vehicle and said the incident was a painful reminder that the case remains unsolved and that her mother has never been found. "My heart just sank, like so many things went through my mind at once, because it was just a video with no context," Kelsey said. The Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office said they believe Wes experienced a medical issue at the time of the crash. He was cited $330 for driving the wrong way on a divided highway. So nearly 4 years after Sandra disappeared, the man who was the last person to see her alive, who has been named a person of interest in what's now a homicide investigation, is still driving around in her vehicle. And I mean, when you think about that, you think too, if he killed her and then he thought, logically, if you're going to make it look like she stormed out of the house and left you, she would take her car. Why wouldn't she take her car? I mean, I know Wes says, well, I took her keys, but a woman who really wanted to leave would probably find the keys and leave. I mean, I doubt Wes was up all night. I think in the original video, I talk about how he says he hid the keys, and so that's to explain why she would have taken his Dodge Stratus. But let's face it, he just figured he'd dump the old car, dump her body with it, and get rid of it, and then he would have her newer car to drive around in. That is some really, like, wow. Like, just wow. It's not bad enough that you possibly killed her, but then you kind of stole her car, which is just bizarre. But Kelsey, Sandra's daughter and Wes's daughter, talks about how Sandra cherished that car and how it's just yet another reminder of how her mom would be driving that car if she were still alive. Heading into March of 2026, almost 5 years after Sandra's disappearance, there have been no arrests, and police told reporters in March of 2025 that there have been no new updates in the case. Franklin police continue to investigate this as a homicide, but the reality is that without Sandra's body or the missing Dodge Stratus, building a case strong enough to bring charges has proven extremely difficult. Wes Jr. has said that it's just difficult with a no-body homicide. It's hard to try because one could still argue that she might still be out there somewhere, as unlikely as that might be. Private investigators have noted that without physical evidence, forensics, or a body, these cases are incredibly tough to solve. And I think there are a lot more no-body homicide cases tried, I think, in the past few decades than maybe would have been a million years ago. But normally you can, there would be some like evidence of a struggle in the home, or they would have luminoled part of the garage and there would have been blood stains or something like that. And according to the search warrants, they didn't really find anything like that. You have the canine dogs alerting that maybe there was, a cadaver, there, a dead body. But that, I don't know that that would be enough for a jury. But the fact that nobody's heard from Sandra, that the car hasn't been found, she hasn't been found. Obviously, she's an older woman. She didn't take any money with her, so she's not receiving her Social Security. So how would she be living if she had just up and walked out? Like, how would she be affording life? She would need medical care. She'd be on Medicare. She wouldn't be able just to afford that all on her own. So there are, I think, a lot of ways that you can convince a jury that this person just isn't alive anymore, even if you don't have the body. And I would think the cell phone information would be really, really important. I know we have the last ping is at Wes's brother's house. Why would Sandra drive the Dodge Stratus over and drop her phone off, or even be in his driveway? I mean, the only reason why the cell phone is there is because allegedly Wes brought it there with her body to dispose of the car and to have the brother help, and maybe the son as well. And maybe it wasn't, I know the neighbor said they heard gunshots, but you kind of wonder, was it something more like they just were fighting and he strangled her, or could he have possibly just pushed her and she fell? Although then there would be more likely be blood. See, I was thinking the strangulation because then there isn't blood, and that's probably way easier to kind of clean up after. But still, I don't know. I can understand that prosecutors don't want to go to trial and have Wes get off, because once he's tried for her murder, they can't try him again. But at the same time, he's older, and these poor kids are never going to get any kind of justice. And not that I think he's just going to up and confess, but you'd think maybe the fear of, he'd be going to prison probably, for the rest of his life. So it would work a little better if maybe he were a little younger and you could say that he would get out, but he's not going to get out. He would go to prison and he would die in prison. And so then that's not really an incentive for him to tell. You just wonder if he'll bother to tell anybody what really happened before he dies. His own children, like at the bare minimum, if they never end up trying him, Let's hope that he at least has the decency to his own children with Sandra to tell them what really happened to their mom. I mean, Wes, if you're listening, could you just do that for sure? It's just so awful. I don't understand how people can do that to their spouses, but I really don't understand how they can do that to the parents of their children and take that away from them. These poor kids now don't have a mom, but they also don't have a dad because they know their dad allegedly killed their mom, which would put a little bit of a strain on that father-son or father-daughter relationship. Sandra's children, to their credit, haven't given up hope, though, on finding out what really happened to their mom. They continue to speak with investigators, provide DNA samples, and keep their mother's case in the public eye. People with the family already know what happened. It's just a matter of proving it in court, and I feel like we'll get there one day, West Jr. said in a 2024 interview. So where do we go from here? I think I've already kind of expounded on that a little bit, but I've been following this case since it happened, and I will be on the lookout for any new details that emerge. But over time, it just becomes harder and harder. Not that I really believed it a year in, but I really don't believe it now that Sandra voluntarily left her home that night. The unsealed search warrants really paint a picture of a very troubled marriage, a family that has been torn apart, and some truly disturbing allegations. The threat about stuffing someone in a water heater, followed by water heaters being scrapped days after Sandra disappeared, the cell phone pinging at her brother's house at 3:13 a.m., the neighbors possibly hearing gunshots, and threatening text messages from the stepson all add up to nothing good having happened. And yet, despite all of that, and despite two persons of interest being identified, and that this case is being investigated as a homicide and not just a missing person, no one has yet to be charged. I cannot imagine the frustration of Sandra's children. What's particularly haunting to me is thinking about the police officer who followed the Dodge Stratus that night. And I know everybody, and especially I'm sure Sandra's children just think, if only they had pulled the car over. If only Sandra had already been reported missing, then they would have pulled the car over and that would have changed everything, because you have to think her body was in that car. Wes was driving that car, or Wes's son or Wes's brother allegedly was driving that car, and Sandra's body may have been in it. And then I keep going back to the quarries. So that part of Wisconsin, there's a ton of quarries. So along the route, if you go look at a map, or if you go drive on those streets where the Dodge Stratus was seen, there are all these quarries, and some of them have deep water-filled pits, and I always wonder if they were searched. And I have driven down some of those roads, and the quarries, it's not like you can just drive down and into it, meaning into the whole land where that is. I mean, they have fences and barriers so that you're not, they don't want people driving around there, especially at night. It could be very dangerous. But you just kind of wonder if there was some way they could have gotten in there, and did they dump a car in there? I would think the police have looked into that. But I mean, as we've seen in millions of cases where people drive their cars into rivers and lakes and the police miss it, and then, the YouTube divers go and find the cars, I don't know that I trust the police to be all that great. I don't know that they have great sonar equipment or whatever it is you need to see deep in the water. But I wish we could get some confirmation on whether or not those have actually been searched. Sandra's daughter, Kelsey, had mentioned originally wanting to search the Root River in Franklin because there is a property that's owned by her stepbrother, but I haven't seen any updates on whether or not that has actually been searched or not as well. There's just so many questions that I wish we had answers to. What happened that night of March 26, 2021? Who was really driving the Dodge Stratus at 3 a.m.? And why did Sandra's phone stop pinging at Wes's brother's house? What happened to the $10,000 in cash that Wes had in his car, and why did he have $10,000 in cash? I can't even figure that part out. And most importantly, though, in all of this is, where is Sandra? Franklin police encourage anyone with information to call their non-emergency number 414-425-2522. And remember that the $50,000 reward is still active for any information leading to a conviction. Her grandchildren are growing up without their grandmother, and every holiday and every birthday and every milestone happens with her absence hanging over their family. As Kelsey has said, I know somewhere my mom is. Whether it's looking down on me or watching from afar, she gives me strength and she gives me the motivation, and I won't stop until I find out and get answers that we all deserve. It's been nearly 5 years and this case is no closer to resolution, but I believe justice can still be served, and I believe that the answers can still be found, and Sandra certainly deserves that. So please share the video and share Sandra's story and keep her case in the spotlight, because someone out there knows something, and maybe they just don't realize the importance of what they saw or what they know. And maybe somebody was scared to come forward, but that as more pieces of information come out, maybe they'll feel like they can add to that and finally bring justice to Sandra's family. If you have thoughts, leave them in the comments below. What do you think happened, and do you think that Wes and/or his brother will ever be charged for Sandra's murder? Please give the video a like, share it with anyone you think should hear about Sandra's story, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on this case and see others like it. Until next time, stay safe, stay careful, and never stop asking questions. Thanks, guys.